Greetings, salutations, everybody. Welcome to this installment of AMC Mailbag. Now, AMC Mailbag is not AMC Movie Talk. Now, AMC Movie Talk is our daily show that we do Mondays through Fridays, covering all the world of movie news. But because you guys send in so many questions to the mailbag, we decided to start this new show called AMC Mailbag that we do on Saturdays and Sundays. And all we do is take your mailbag questions. To get your question on the show, email us at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. And today I am very happy to be joined by one of our correspondents at AMC Movie News, Miss Clark Wolf. Clark, how you doing?
Hey, John. I'm good. Hi, everybody. Watching Mailbag. I'm happy to be here. I'm actually headed to go do a red carpet at Fox. So I have a little extra face paint on today. So don't be scared. Don't be alarmed. I know I look a little drag queeny right now, but it'll all look good on the carpet.
All right. Now, before we get going, actually, I got a couple announcements I want to make. You may have seen this on AMC Movie Talk before. Upcoming, of course, is Comic-Con in San Diego. It's like the biggest geek and cultural event in the world. And I'm sure most of you guys are going. It's in the middle of June, near the end of July, in July. And we've got a couple of really important things going on. Number one, every year I do an event called Masters of the Web where I get some of the biggest and best film pundits online together to talk about movies, and sometimes we get some celebrities on there as well as guests. This year we have a special horror theme, and we're getting some of the best voices online from the world of horror, and we're partnering with Lionsgate's new amazing film called You're Next. So the writer and the director of that film are going to be panelists as well with us. It's going to be a really good time. It's on the Thursday of Comic-Con at 11:30 a.m. Please make sure to join us. We'll put a link in the description. So look in the description of this video and get some more information. Also, AMC Movie News and AMC Movie Talk and AMC Mailbag is having a meet and greet at Comic-Con. I get emails from a lot of people asking how can they meet us sometime. Well, we're going to be at Comic-Con, and we're going to have a meet and greet where you can just drop in. We're just going to be hanging out at the bar at the Omni Hotel, which is right across from the Convention Center at Comic-Con. And we're going to be in the bar there on the main floor from 7 till 8:30. So come on by, drop in. We're going to be just hanging out and just talking with each other. So come on in and say hi. I also will put some a link into the description so you can find out more about that. With all that being said, it's time to get to the mailbag questions. Let's start with this one. This one comes from Matches Malone, and Matches writes, "Hey guys, love the show. My question is, why is it so hard to bring a Wonder Woman to the big screen? I mean, an island full of beautiful women and a strong female character for a change. Sounds like thumbs up for both genders, right? I don't think casting is a problem since I never heard of Henry Cavill before Man of Steel, and he turned out to be a great Superman. So the potential is there." Thanks a lot for the question, Matches. Clark, why don't we have a Wonder Woman yet? And do you think a Wonder Woman movie can work?
You know, I personally, and I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer here, but I think that our best shot for a decent Wonder Woman movie was a couple of years ago when Joss Whedon was actually signed on to be writing and directing a Wonder Woman movie. I think that if anybody could balance some of that, because I've actually done a lot of research on the Wonder Woman character for my own personal knowledge, and she's had a lot of incarnations. Her character has changed a lot over the years, so the story isn't as consistent as maybe some of the other characters are. But that being said, I mean, I think she's a really interesting character. I love how in the last couple of years she's become more strong, and I personally think that I like all the incarnations of the character. I like the World War II incarnation. I think that that's really kind of could be fun and interesting, but then the more modern take is also cool. So but for me, I think that Joss Whedon could have been the guy who could have done it. If anybody's going to manage that badass female superhero living in the real world, trying to, a la Buffy. I mean, I think he had a lot of practice bringing a character like that, into the real world and making it plausible, but still playing with a little bit of that campy side, but still making her a badass and an action hero and smart and strong and a real woman, a real complicated woman. So I think Joss could have done a really good job. That being said, I know that NBC's failed pilot, the stuff we saw from that never even made it to air was just really misguided. And I think even David E. Kelley recently gave an interview saying if he could do it again, he would, and he's learned so much from the misfires. And I think that handing that character over to just anybody is dangerous, because it's easy to make that character goofy and I think that that's probably the thing standing in the way of a standalone Wonder Woman movie. But I would love to see Wonder Woman, in a Justice League capacity. I think introducing her as a supporting character and sort of kind of working out the kinks in that respect might be a good way to sort of introduce her. And then maybe she might get her stand, a la the Hulk, maybe like we're seeing with Ruffalo's Hulk.
I think Wonder Woman stands, with a couple of obstacles in its way, one of which you pointed out. But I will say this, whenever you bring up Wonder Woman, a lot of people will instantly go back to, well, we had our chance to have a great Wonder Woman when Joss Whedon was doing it, and WB didn't have the guts to go with the Joss Whedon thing. I bet they're kicking themselves now. Little inside information. I've read the Joss Whedon Wonder Woman script. Not his best work. And everybody knows what a huge fan I am of Joss Whedon. I call Avengers the greatest comic book movie of all time, hands down. I love the dude. He is awesome. That was not his best work. So let's not just jump to the assumption that if
every Buffy, there's a dollhouse, right?
Yes. Let's just not just jump to the assumption that if they had done the Joss Whedon Wonder Woman, everything would have been great. Not the case. There are a couple of things standing in the way. Number one, what you were already pointing out, Clark. The fact of the matter is there is high camp risk, high campiness risk with a Wonder Woman, the stars and stripes and all that kind of stuff. Now, then you'll have some people say, yeah, but you go after the other element of Wonder Woman, the Amazonian warrior, the blah. Okay, yes, but Man of Steel went away from the campiness. And I thought Man of Steel, aside from Avengers, the best comic book movie I've ever seen. But you go away from that campiness that everybody so fondly remembers. You go the Amazonian warrior route, and I think what Warner Brothers is a little bit would be worried about now is looking at that and saying, well, we can't do the campiness, but if we go away from the campiness, everybody's going to be pissed off if we go the Amazonian warrior. Now, the other, of course, the bigger, more obvious problem and obstacle in the way of Wonder Woman is that we as audience members have not supported strong female leads in films, especially when it comes to genre, sci-fi, action stuff. Elektra, now granted, an argument made was, well, those movies also sucked, sure, but you don't know they suck until the opening weekend and you actually go out and see them. So we had Elektra and we had, oh gosh, there was a whole bunch of them and they've all failed. Now, some people, when I mention that, will often say, well, John Ripley and the Aliens, she was the female lead and that worked. Yes, but we all know that the star of Aliens wasn't Ripley. The star of Aliens was the Aliens. That's what we were all going to see. I think we need a Wonder Woman movie to start to correct that, to show that we can have strong female leads in these films, in these types of genre films, and they can work and they can be great. And the audience is entice the audience to spend their money to go see them. But up till now, Warner Brothers is sitting back and saying, people aren't spending money to go see them, so they're a little bit nervous, and I understand that. But I've said this for a long time to kind of echo what you were just saying. They need to not introduce Wonder Woman in her own standalone movie. Introduce Wonder Woman in Justice League or Man of Steel 2 or Man of Steel 3, whatever.
Sure.
Introduce her in another character's film so you don't have to have to worry about people not supporting it. And then show the audience that this is an awesome, awesome character who would do great in her own standalone film. That's the way to do it. Everybody says to me, no, John, no, if you do a Wonder Woman movie, it'll be great and it'll make $100 billion. No, you're dumb if you think that. That ain't going to happen. Introduce her in somebody else's film so people will go out to see her and see that she's a great character and she's worth having her own standalone movie. I think that's the way to go about this. All right, let's jump on down to the next question. The next question comes from Judah Nero. And Judah Nero writes, hey guys, you're my YouTube movie crack, and I'll never go to rehab. So poetic. I've been rereading my Spawn comics, and it's prompted me to rewatch the movie. So sad. I had read way back that they were going to reboot it with Djimon Hounsou as the role of Simmons/Spawn. Any word about it? Any hope for it? What do you think? I know my opinion counts for nothing, but I really think with today's technology, this could be an amazing movie. You're not wrong, Judah. You're not wrong. It could be an amazing movie. I was never an avid Spawn reader, but my buddy collected all the Spawn comics, and inevitably when I was at his place, so I'd always pick up a few issues and read through them. And it's a very cool comic, and you could tell by watching that original So Sad movie that there was potential there for some pretty good stuff, but it didn't execute. I think the reason that we have not seen another Spawn incarnation at this point, and why I don't think it would work, but I mean, I'd love to see it, but I'm just being honest. Here's why I don't think it would work. It's too dark for the general movie-going audience. I don't think the general movie-going audience wants to see that level of darkness. Because now, maybe to you and me, that makes for a damn fun time watching a movie. But I know for, like, let's talk about Avengers and Man of Steel and stuff, all that kind of stuff. My mom went to go see those movies. She loved them. My sisters went to go see those movies. They loved them. I know a lot of people who, just about every walk of the general movie-going audience can go to those movies. My mom won't go see Spawn. Now you can say to me, well, John, Spawn isn't made for your mom. Exactly. For the amount of money it's going to cost to make this Spawn the way we envision it and the way we want it to be, it has to appeal to the wide movie-going audience. And I just have a feeling that the elements that make it so cool to you and me would be the exact same elements that would keep a lot of the movie-going audience away and not want to check it out. That's just my thought. Clark, what do you think? Why do you think we haven't seen another Spawn film yet? And you know, would you want to see another Spawn film?
Well, you know, so full disclosure, I am not as familiar with the source material comics of the Spawn character.
I thought you were going to say, full disclosure, I'm dating McFarlane. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, but I'm not entirely familiar with the character, and the movie came out a bit before I remember when that movie came out, and I remember being young and being like, "Whoa, what's that? That's kind of crazy and creepy and cool." But it was before my time. So that being said, though, from what I do know about the character and from what you're talking about the darkness and that element to the character, I think that if they were going to do another movie, they have to keep it that R rating. I think that would be the smartest move they could do. And also, you know, I would say, judging by, a couple weeks ago, R-rated flick The Purge just came out, made $34 million, and about a society in anarchy. You know, kind of dark stuff, right? And I know there's talk of rebooting the Blade films. So I know that, I think my point is that I think the movie-going trend might be moving towards a darker tone, maybe in general. I'm not sure if they're ready for full-on dark Spawn as the comic fans would want to see it, but I think that I think that you're right. It is a bit too dark. It is a bit too much for the general Avengers movie-going audience. But that being said, I do think that if the trend in film keeps kind of going the way it's going, dark is kind of coming in. And so maybe, you know, if you could find a responsible filmmaker who could make the movie for, you know, $30 million, $40 million and do it well, you might actually get to see that Spawn movie. But I haven't heard it. I do remember the Jaimin Hansu story about linking him to the reboot of the character, and I've heard nothing about that since. So as far as I know, there's no plans to
I haven't heard anything else about it either myself. But I think there's a real distinction to be drawn here between darker, like for instance, this was a slightly darker Superman. Right. Although my argument is that the movie was darker, the character wasn't necessarily darker, but this was a darker Superman. But there's a difference between darker and morbidly dark. And you know, Spawn talking about demons and Satan and like so much death, and so I mean that is really morbidly dark. And you know, you mentioned The Purge making $34 million. For Purge, that's great. For a Spawn film, with the amount of money it would cost to make a Spawn film, a $34 million would have, you know, film studio executives throwing themselves out the windows. Yeah. So because we're talking probably a minimum $125 million budget on a film like the properly done Spawn. And then there's also a difference between like Blade dark, but Blade is darker, but it's also crazy fun. And a lot of people enjoy those films, even though it's R-rated for the violence. Then Spawn is just on another level of darkness that makes it really cool to folks like me. Mm-hmm. But I just don't know that it'll work with a wider audience.
I'd want to see it. I'd want to see it if they did it. I really like. I'm you know, John. I'm into all that stuff. I almost said a non-friends word. Sorry about that. But I'm into all that stuff, and so I'd want to see it. So I'm with you, Judah. Let's reboot it and let's do it right.
All right, next question comes to us from Dean Swanston. And Dean Swanston writes, "Hey guys, love the show. You really know about your movies, especially you, JC." Oh, well, thank you. With all these remakes, they're okay, with all these remakes they're bringing to the big screen, which half of them I love, how would you guys think about remaking Neverending Story? And do you think it should be made? And if not, why? Now, I'm going to go first on this one. Absolutely, I'd be down for a Neverending Story. Neverending Story, to me, I mean, Neverending Story is one of those treasures of my childhood. Like, it's such a special place in my heart. I know a lot of you didn't believe I had a heart, but I do. And in there somewhere is a little corner for Neverending Story. I love that. You know, the Treyu and the nothing. And I love that movie. But I have a set of criteria for remakes. You know, I think remakes, you can do a remake if, you know, the original's more than 20 years old, if most of the current movie-going audience hasn't seen it, if the story could benefit from a modern retelling and modern technology. If all those things are in place, I'm all for a remake. Well, let's look at Neverending Story. More than 20 years old? Check. Could it has the majority of the current movie-going audience not seen it? Check. Could it benefit from a modern retelling and new special effects? Check. So to me, I absolutely see no downside to doing a Neverending Story 2, or a new Neverending Story, a rebooted Neverending Story, bring it to a new audience. If it fails, so be it. It fails and it sucks. I still have the original. But if it's good or even moderately good, it could turn new audience members onto the original, much like The Departed did for Infernal Affairs, or The Ring, North American version, turned people on to the original version of The Ring. You know, I see nothing but upside. So for me personally, I know a lot of you will disagree, for me personally, I'd love to see a Neverending Story remake. Clark, what do you think?
I'm one of a lot of yous that's going to disagree. I do not know. Please, please, please don't touch Neverending Story. And here's why. You know, Neverending Story is such a perfect movie of its time, right? Like, I would shudder to think if anybody talked about remaking Labyrinth, for instance. Like, you can't, to me, these movies are where they are in the 80s, the perfect combination of everything to make these lovely movies, and to me, I think they need to just stay there. And to be honest with you, I don't want a CG Falcor. I want the puppet whose mouth goes like this and, like, you know, has a British accent. I guess he doesn't have a British accent, but anyway, so to me, that movie is just so perfectly of its time, and I understand that Fantasia and the world is not in the 80s. I understand that, you know, you can easily cross back and forth, but in between, you know, modern day as we know it. And also, to be fair, there could be a lot of really good tie-ins between the bullying storyline. It's very contemporary. That's very much in our zeitgeist today, and this fantasy world. And honestly, truth be told, I would love a resurgence now that we have all this amazing digital technology of these fantasy movies. And I mean, like, real fantasy, like the Legends and the Labyrinths and the Neverending Stories. Just don't
remake the Legends.
Exactly. Or the That's what I'm saying. Like, we got a movie a couple years ago called Mirror Mask, which was very much in that vein of, and it was, you know, the Jem Henson Company, and it was in that vein of Labyrinth and all of those types of things, but it was different. It was its own story, and to me, that's like the best of both worlds. So, and just to be fair, Dean, I agree, I'm down with remakes. I think, you know, and John, you and I have talked about this before. I agree with the sentiment of, hey, most of the time remake it. If it sucks, fine, you still have the original. If not, fine. But to me, those classic 80s fantasy movies, they're just so perfect the way they are. So I don't want anyone to touch that.
All right, let's move on to the next question. The next question comes to us from Jeff Myers, and Jeff Myers writes, "Hey guys, I love the show, and I couldn't help but ask you guys a professional question. Everyone loved the classic Spielberg films, such as E.T. and Jurassic Park. However, why doesn't Universal ever sit down, have a conference, and discuss productions for the fifth installment of one of the greatest movie franchises in film history, Jaws?" Well, okay, Jeff, first of all, we actually addressed a question like this a few weeks ago on AMC Movie Talk, but the question was about a Jaws remake and maybe rebooting Jaws. You're asking about Jaws 5. Well, no.
No.
Okay, one of the greatest film franchises in film history? No.
No.
Jaws? One of the greatest films in film history? Sure. Jaws 2? A very good movie. Very good movie. Jaws 3? Jaws 4? Jaws tracking down Michael Caine in the Caribbean waters to take out personal revenge? Lou Gossett Jr. fighting the giant jaws out of water
Dennis
park?
Quaid in 3D.
Dennis Quaid in 3D. What are the greatest movie franchises ever? No. They were terrible and it ran out of steam. And the fact of the matter is, in the last couple of years, we've had several giant shark movies, right? Like whether it be Deep Blue Sea or whether it be like Shark Night 3D or whatever. And nobody wanted to see them. Nobody cared. No, like a giant shark movie done. I think I'd be okay with the idea of a Jaws remake. You'll never be as good as the original, ever. But I might be okay with the idea of a Jaws remake. But a Jaws 5, it just got so ridiculous there was even an element of ridiculousness to Jaws 2, as good as it was. It got really ridiculous in Jaws 3, and it just got outright preposterous by Jaws 4. I just don't see any upside to doing a Jaws 5. Clark, do you see this any differently?
No, I do not. You and I are very much on the same page. And in fact, you took the words right out of my mouth. This is not one of the greatest franchises in history. And that's my answer is no. The first one is one of the best American films ever made. And the second one, pretty good follow-up, but the third, and in fact, as a Jaws fan, to our lovely Jeff, who asked the question, go back and watch the commentary. Richard Zanuck has talked a lot about how they made this joke about Jaws 3 people 0 or something like that. Like they wanted to actually do the sequel when the studios wanted the sequels. They wanted to do them as a spoof. They wanted to do them in that vein of Airplane. You know, they recognized that. How the heck do you make a killer shark, you know, that you exploded in the first movie come back for more? Are you kidding here? So even Richard Zanuck knew that it wasn't a movie that needed to have more to it. But if you ever are bored and find yourself wanting to play a great drinking game, Jaws 3 drinking game is really a lot of fun. So go back and revisit that for the camp value. But in terms of another Jaws movie, no thanks. Although, and by the way, Deep Blue Sea, totally trashy, awesome Tom Jane fun. So just go watch that. Go watch the original. But we don't need a Jaws 5. I
like Deep Blue Sea. That moment, I did not see it coming when Samuel L. Jackson got snatched up. I had no idea to see it coming.
John, I was eating when I was watching that because I had rented it, and I had like a mouth, and I almost choked because I was so startled and shocked. I showed that movie to a 12-year-old recently with permission from his parents, and the kid was very concerned about the parrot, about LL Cool J's parrot, which I never recognized before. But there's a lot of hidden gems in Deep Blue Sea, so go revisit Deep Blue Sea and leave Jaws alone.
All right, the next question comes from John Kreshko, who writes, "Hello, AMC. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day right now. My question is about your mailbag." All right. I know that you answer not that many questions on AMC Movie Talk, but you do answer more on AMC Mailbag. I've submitted at least a dozen questions to you so far, and you've expected a few of mine to answer in the future. But my question is this. Once you've picked the mail that you would like to answer on the shows, how do you decide which ones to answer? Do you pick them at random or pick them if they have an interesting subject? I'll field this one. I actually have some help picking out the questions because we literally get hundreds of emails every day. We get literally in the hundreds people emailing into AMC Mailbag. So I'm going to give you it depends on a couple of things. Number one, we tend to skip over as many as we can any subjects that start with Avengers or today, Man of Steel questions or whatever, just because we've addressed so many. I especially just jump over anything that's like Spider-Man in Avengers 2. Like we get, guys, you're laughing that I say that. But you would not believe how many emails we still get of people asking about Spider-Man in Avengers 2, right? Just the other day on AMC Movie Talk, I went off on a pretty long rant about people asking me about, once again, the Christopher Nolan Batman series and maybe Christian Bale being in the next Man of Steel or Justice League. And despite the fact that we've answered that question a bunch of times, that no, it's done. I mean, sure, Christopher Nolan can change his mind and make himself a liar. And if he does that, sure. But based on everything Christopher Nolan has said, there's no Batman moving forward from the Christopher Nolan Batman universe. That's done. But then sometimes we will revisit questions because we still get hundreds of them. For instance, I've revisited the issue of Spider-Man in Avengers a couple of times because we still get hundreds of emails asking about them. So if they keep coming in, then I'm kind of obligated to at least address it again in a month or two, But generally speaking, we look for questions that, number one, have not been answered 1,000 times. Number two, are relevant to most people. Now, what do I mean by relevant to most people? Well, if you ask me about maybe a movie version of this obscure little comic that is only released in Norway and nobody here has ever read, well, then answering the question on the show really wouldn't be relevant because most of our viewers would have no idea what we're talking about and it's not applicable to them. So we try not to answer too many questions that would alienate the majority of the people who watch the show. Not that it can only be populist topics, but at least something that's not going to alienate everybody. You know what I'm saying? So we look for good questions on topics that most people will have relevance to, that hopefully haven't been answered 1,000 times. And even if it's something we've answered before, popular trends and questions. If people keep asking about Avengers 2, eventually I have to answer another Avengers 2 question. So please don't be discouraged if you've sent in a few questions and we haven't answered them. We do get to as many as we can, but as I said, we get about 1,000 a week come in, and we only are able to answer maybe 30 or 40 tops, maybe. So don't be discouraged. Keep sending them in, and we'll go from there. So with that out of the way, let's move on to the next question. And the next question, and by the way, there you go, John. You had one of your questions answered on AMC Mailbag. The next question comes to us from Carlos Diaz, and Carlos Diaz writes, "Greetings, my friends at AMC Movie Talk. My question is, now that Hollywood is slowly but surely making movie adaptations of popular video games like Warcraft, Assassin's Creed, and Ghost Recon, will this phase of video game movies replace the superhero genre in the future?" Clark, what do you think? Are video game movies going to replace superhero movies?
Well, replace, I don't know if they'll ever replace them, but I do think, there's always trends in filmmaking, the waning of interest on certain things,
Yeah.
right? We all know what happened when Burton launched his Batman franchise, and then it crashed and burned and ended with Joel Schumacher's final installment. And then we waited a couple of years, and then, Spider-Man came along, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the popularity, I think, fluctuates, depending on what's going on, and over the years it fluctuates. But I do think that we could, if we start to get some decent video game adaptations with, high quality stars, if basically the production teams start to take an interest in these types of franchises, like they have started to take an interest in the superhero franchises, because let's remember that these superhero franchises now are treated, I think, with a lot of respect.
Yeah, they really
but
are.
they weren't always, but they've earned it at this point, because Hollywood has started making really solid superhero movies. So that being said, if we can start to get away from the not so solid video game adaptations that we've had in the past, I remember going to see Max Payne. Some guy took me on a date once. We did not have a second date.
No, I would hope not.
I judged him a bit for his movie taste, but that's a different story. But anyway, the point is that, if we can start getting more high quality video game adaptations, I absolutely think that we'll definitely see a spike in interest and a reactivated interest in that type of a trend.
Yeah, the reality though here is that it's not like, video game movies are starting to get made. We've had a lot of video game movies, and they have all sucked. Without exception, they have all sucked. Now, I give a little bit of credit to the first Tomb Raider film. I thought the first Tomb Raider wasn't too bad, but other than that, they've all been terrible. And I think that's the key here, and I think that's what you were alluding to, Clark, is that the key is not making more video game movies to have them replace superhero genres. The key is making good ones.
Right.
And that they have not done yet. Now, things like BioShock, which is not being made, unfortunately, now, but World of Warcraft, Assassin's Creed, these are films that have pretty decent potential to be good. But right now, that's all it is potential. They need to knock these out of the park. And I'm telling you right now, Hollywood is hoping that these video game franchises can replace superhero genres because they're running out of marquee big-name superheroes to make movies out of. They're actually starting to run out. That's why we're going to see Ant-Man. That's why we're going to see some of the Guardians of the Galaxy, because we've literally now at this point done all the big major characters, aside from some of the DC ones that we're probably going to get around to here pretty shortly. But they would love it. They would absolutely love it if they cranked out some really great video game movies that the audience responded to. And I think the audience will respond. Look, you make a great World of Warcraft movie, the audience will be there. You make a great Assassin's Creed movie, the audience will be there. But that's the key. Make a great one. It's what they have not done yet. But if they can do it, the potential's there. Don't get me wrong. Superhero movies are going to be around for a very long time still. But yeah, we could see a resurgence, a real resurgence in video game movies, especially with World of Warcraft and Assassin's Creed. You make one of those two really good, suddenly every video game is going to be looked at very seriously for franchise potential. All right, last question of the day comes to us from Yamil Diaz. I wonder if there's any relation to Carlos Diaz. Anyway, Yamil writes, "Hello, my name is Yamil Diaz, and I love the show. My question is about the year 2015. With recent announcements and rumors that movies like Assassin's Creed, Independence Day, Jurassic Park 4, and Justice League may be coming out in the year 2015, plus the other big movies that have already been set for that year, is the year 2015 too full of great movies? And could you run down a list of known and rumored movies that year?" Thanks so much for the question, Emil. Right now, too full of great movies? No. Because right now, we don't know if any of the movies are going to be great. We just know that we're really looking forward to them. So let me run down for you. Here are some of the ones that are coming out, okay? In 2015, here's what we know is coming out. Star Wars Episode 7, Avengers 2, the Finding Nemo sequel, Finding Dora, Assassin's Creed. There's a rumor of a Justice League. We don't know that for sure, though. Independence Day 2, Pirates of the Caribbean 5, Jurassic Park 4, Mission Impossible 5, The Fantastic Four reboot, Marvel's Ant-Man, World of Warcraft, and the final Hunger Games. This has the potential, the very real potential. I'm going to predict it, actually. 2015 will be the biggest box office year of all time. I believe that year is going to shatter box office records. And that's without knowing if these movies are going to be any good. If they are good, it's going to be ridiculous. Like I'm going to basically be living at the movie theater 24/7 the entire 2015. So we've got a lot of really good things. But remember, no such thing as too many good movies. Remember, there's 52 weeks in the year. 52 weeks for movies to come out. You can release 5 great ones a week, and we'll go see them. So I am so excited. Clark, when I read down a list like that, like Star Wars 7, Avengers 2, Finding Dora, Mission Impossible 5, Fantastic Four, all these movies, what one or two really stand out to you that you're looking forward to?
Oh man, well we talked about this on Movie Talk the other day, the confirmation of Independence Day 2. For me, Independence Day as a kid, that movie was my jam. Like I loved that movie. I saw it multiple times in the theaters. And it's still to this day, I watch it on the 4th of July.
It's still great. I mean, it's the first movie I ever went to see in the theater multiple times.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
I did that too. I made my dad take me back and over. He was like, "Really? More with this? How many times do I have to see this stupid movie?" And then I remember it came out on video at Thanksgiving, and I made my parents take me to the grocery store on Thanksgiving to buy Independence Day on VHS. And while everyone was celebrating America, I was celebrating America's independence from aliens. So there you go. Anyway, the point is, I would love for Will Smith to come back for Independence Day 2 and kill it. I would love for Jeff Goldblum to come back. I want them all back. and I think that that has the potential to be awesome. And I also think that the Star Wars coming out, that's crazy. And Avengers 2 coming out, that's crazy. So for me, those are sort of on my radar. I do want to say one thing, and I am not being a negative Nancy here, but I am a little worried with all of these blockbusters. You know, Jurassic Park 3 was not good. And let's just not forget that sometimes these big sequels, I mean, is it going to be the best, like full of the best quality summer we've ever seen? I don't know. Maybe it's just me being a little nervous because there's so much going on. I mean, I have faith, and obviously I have faith in J.J. Abrams directing Star Wars, and I have faith in Finding Dory. But like Pirates 5, we'll see how good that is, and we'll see if it still has the box office draw that it had a few years ago with Pirates 4. We'll see. I think it's going to be a super interesting summer to see how it all goes. And I also want to throw out there Ant-Man. I am stoked for that. I want to see that movie for sure. So I'm excited. 2015 is going to be great. We got to get through 2014. We got to finish 2013 and then get through 2014, and then
and let's not forget, 2014 is shaping up to be a really fun year too. But yeah, 2015, and to me, my whole life right now is about Star Wars Episode 7. Everything about my life is about waking up in the morning and checking off one more day off the calendar, one day closer to the next Star Wars movie. That's what my whole life is about.
Your Star Wars advent calendar, getting a little chocolate every day.
Yep. That's a lot of chocolate between now and 2015. All right, folks, that'll do it for us. We have completely run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, I want to remind you once again that we've got that Masters of the Web panel coming up at Comic-Con. If you needed another reason to go, there you go. Coming out, see us. The whole AMC Movie Talk crew will be at the Masters of the Web Comic-Con panel as well. Once again, it's a horror theme. Look in the description of this video and you'll see a link to our Facebook event page for it. You'll get some more information. Also, don't forget the Thursday night of Comic-Con. We are having an AMC Movie News meet and greet. You can come meet all of us. Me, Amy Rose, Clark Wolf, Brooke Chavez, Chris Lee Kennedy, Dennis Zhang, John Schnepp, Gray is going to be there, of course. Come on down and meet us. Make sure you put that in your calendar now. While I've got you, don't forget, stop what you're doing, click the subscribe button, become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news, and of course our daily AMC Movie Talk Show and our AMC Mailbag Show here on the weekends. And of course we do special little editorials now and again as well. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AMC Theaters. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. I want to thank my guest today, Miss Clark Wolf. Clark, where can everybody find you online?
I am on Twitter at Clark Wolf, Clark with an E, Wolf with an E, and please find me on Facebook at Official Clark Wolf.
Official Clark Wolf.
Official. It's very official.
And then, of course, there's me. You can find me on Twitter at John Campia or on Facebook at John Campia. Just come on by and say hi. So until next time, thanks a lot for joining us. My name's John Campia, and for AMC Movie News, bye-bye.